service or
So in
down.
other words, we would not be hiring anyone and having
No.
anyone responsible for it. Thank you.
Okay.
On the main motion under Article 13, which is to appropriate the sum of $48,000 for the purpose of purchasing golf carts for the Hillview Enterprise, and so that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, be authorized to borrow said sum, and that the debt service thereon shall be paid from the earnings of the Hillview Enterprise. This requires a 2/3 vote. On the motion, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Unanimous. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Article 14. Mr. Muldoon.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move to appropriate the sum of $50,000 for the purpose of making improvements at the Hillview Enterprise, and that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, is authorized to borrow said sum, and that the debt service thereon shall be paid from the earnings of the Hillview Enterprise.
Thank you, Mr. Muldoon. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation? Mr. Mastascusa?
The Finance Committee voted to recommend this article, Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Muldoon for the Board of Selectmen.
Board of Selectmen recommends.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, the motion is for $50,000 with an authorization to borrow, therefore requires a 2/3 vote. On the motion, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Let's try that again. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. And would my tellers please go to work? Mr. Laidotes, Mr. Bagan, and Mr. Vino. Mr. Bagan. Oh, I thought you had a count already. Mr. Vino? 38. Mr. Laidotes? 70. Thank you. All those opposed, please raise your right hand. Mr. Laidotes, 0.
None.
Mr. Vino, 2. Mr. Bagan, 0. Mr. Laidotes, on the yes vote, was it 70 or 17? 70. Thank you. The vote is 154 in favor and 2 opposed. The motion attains the necessary 2/3 majority. The motion is carried. Okay. Article 15. National School renovation. Mr. Venezia.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to appropriate $15,738,810 for the purpose of constructing an addition to and/or remodeling, reconstructing, and making extraordinary repairs to Batchelder School, including original equipment and furnishings related thereto, and the necessary costs associated with the relocation of students, including the use and installation of modular facilities, and to further authorize the treasurer with the approval of the Board of Selectmen to borrow the sum appropriated under Chapter 44 of the General Laws, provided, however, that no debt may be incurred under this vote until the town votes to exempt from the limitation on total taxes imposed by Chapter 59, Section 21C, which is Proposition 2.5, amounts required to pay the principal and interest on the borrowing authorized by this vote.
Thank you, Mr. Venezia. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation? Mr. Mastascusa.
The Finance Committee voted to recommend this article, Mr. Moderator.
Does the Board of Selectmen wish to make a recommendation, Mr. Muldoon?
Board of Selectmen votes to recommend this article.
Does the School Committee make a recommendation on this article, Mr. Venezia?
The school committee unanimously recommends, Mr. Moderator. Mr. Moderator, I'm asking for 20 minutes or not more than 20 minutes, which is just about one inning, worth of time to make a presentation to the meeting.
Mr. Venezia requests 20 minutes to make a presentation to the meeting. All those in favor of giving Mr. Venezia 20 minutes, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Venezia. You have 20 minutes.
Okay, I'm going to ask first Superintendent David Trout to step forward with Sean Killeen, the principal of the Batchelder School. They're going to give a very brief presentation on the existing conditions at the Batchelder. After they've done that, we're going to ask John D. Simone, who's the chairman of the Elementary School Building Committee, along with Charlie Hay, who was our architect from Tapé Associates, to give us a presentation on the design of the Batchelder building. Then I'm going to give a very brief presentation on the space needs that we have. And after that, John D. Simone's going to get up and give a very brief presentation on the cost and the funding for this article. And then finally, Dr. Trout is going to step forward and give you some information on the relocation plan, which is necessitated if is necessary if in fact we do the Batchelder project. So first we have Dr. Trout and Sean Killeen.
Thank you, Mr. Venezia. Welcome to North Reading, gentlemen. Dr. Trout.
I'm going to introduce Mr. Killeen, Sean Killeen, who is the principal of the Batchelder School. Mr. Killeen is going to walk you through the current conditions of the batch to talk about some of the infrastructure needs of that building. I believe everyone is very, very aware of the need to increase space for elementary children, so we'll talk later about what this new project will bring in terms of additional space. So, Mr. Killeen.
Thank you very much. I'm going to quickly, I don't think the question of the facilities is really the hot issue, but I'm going to walk through these because these haven't changed over the past few years that we've discussed these. But if you take a look at the front of the school, it's nice and dolled up with the help of parent Carrie Keogh for the paint on the bench. We slide down. We talked about the ADA coming along with the multiple levels of accessibility limitations the building faces. I've been principal of Batchelder School for 3 years. In my first and second year, I've had to make major changes in classroom location due to students with broken appendages, and a student with other injuries that was in a wheelchair for a short time. So you've had to move classrooms from point A to point B, and even when you're able to do that, they're only accessible to their core classroom, and what I tried to do is get them close to the nurse and a lavatory. Besides that, they would not have access to music, art, gym, PE, and also it would work with parents coming in to supervise over lunch and recess. So accessibility continues to be an issue. With heating and plumbing, you notice through this slideshow up here that we have a lot of our added heating and plumbing comes through the hallways of the school. Also in the mornings, we've invested money to try to improve this, but it's still a roll of the dice whether or not that boiler is going to kick up and we're actually going to have heat. And it does take several hours for the building to kick up and heat. Exposed radiators, which are a safety hazard to kids as well. With the corridors, the lack of space in the core facilities of the classrooms, a lot of our education work sometimes needs to take place outside of the classroom, including our storage areas, and you see that in our folder right here. Notice we stored some AV materials, some tables for students to do some small group work, and a lot of our display work files and science kit materials also stored in the hallways. Classrooms, due to class size and square footage of our classrooms, you're noticing this is a third grade classroom of 26 students in the class. The proximity of the desk from the front of the room to the rear of the classroom really limits flow and momentum of the classroom. It really stops the movement within the classroom. So whenever you have a transition from one activity to another, and when you're managing a lesson in that sense, you want to keep students as stationed as possible. It doesn't allow students to get up and work together collaboratively. Whenever we want to do any type of music programming, chorus, anything like that. Our music classroom does not hold more than one classroom of students, 20, 25 children. So we do move down into the cafeteria for certain times using the riser. The piano is down in the cafeteria, which you have to schedule around our 3 lunches, which is sometimes a continued challenge. One of the big issues that the parents and the students are always aware of, the poor air quality and the ventilation, the heating, and the storage. If you take a look at the classroom very simply, you have the univent area, which is our fresh air intake with our radiator, and then we have to store everything up against that. As that works in the original building, what I have to insist classroom teachers to try to do is to keep their windows open to help assist with the flow of air, to make it a little bit better. The front entrance of the building has been on my request of my 3 years of something to be fixed at the school, but obviously, as soon as you invest dollars at the school, you have to make it handicap accessible. But that's the first thing you see every time when you come into school. So no matter how hard the grounds crew works or how hard the parents work to keep the front of the school clean, the bottom line is it's still falling apart. The handicap accessibility lab, we do have one handicap accessible lavatory in the building. The only place you can access that bathroom is through the cafeteria. Anywhere else or in the modulars, but anywhere else in the building you cannot access that lavatory. The slate roof is a continual management issue as far as repairing and replacing. Every time we have a new storm or different rain, it's a matter of finding where that leak in that classroom is going to be and how you're going to deal with it. The cost to maintain and to replace that roof is a big deal. We've taken a lot of water every single year. Gym floor is just another capital cost that at some point needs to be taken care of. That's a corner of one of our gym floors where we had an excessive termite problem. And it's going to continue to get worse. And our modular classrooms, which have been at the Bachelor School since 1997, provides us 4 classrooms. At that time, it needs to be work done to those to handle those kids. And that is all.
Thank you, Mr. Colleen. This slide lists out a summary of some of the major structural changes that need to be made in the next decade. And Mr. Colleen has reviewed all of those. We're going to turn this now over to the presentation of the designs. Pleased to introduce the architect from Tappe Associates, Charlie Hay.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased to be here. I'm going to give you a very brief introduction to the design of the project as it stands today. We have been engaged by the town to perform a conceptual design at this juncture. So the design, while it is finalized relative to size and layout, there are considerable details that would be developed at a further time. These kind of details will inform the final design if it should go forward. And it's important to note that we have carried, in terms of cost estimates, we have carried adequately over $600,000 in design contingencies that are always carried at this early junction associated with the design developing further, because as an architectural project goes further, it becomes more and more detailed, and all that information gets analyzed. What I'm going to talk about today is just very briefly the building. It is about 75,000 square feet at present. You can see the drawings out in the corridor if you wish. It is 4 classrooms per grade for grades K through 5, as well as 1 pre-kindergarten classroom. The design clearly what it anticipates doing is removing the present annex and modulars, which have been mentioned, and fully renovating the interior of the existing historic building